Okay, let us see steps of intervention. Now, we have seen already what is educational intervention. We have understood what is the definition, what is the purpose, what is the scope, and what are the principles we apply while preparing the educational intervention. Now, we are going to see what are the steps of intervention. What are the steps we need to follow? What are the procedure we need to follow while preparing the intervention? That is your educational intervention. It's not only related to education, but it can be related to your behavior. It can be related to your classroom intervention or any other intervention. Okay, that's why they have given you steps of intervention, because this will only help you all guys to achieve the target. This will help you all guys to achieve the target which you are looking for. Okay, so we're going to discuss about steps of intervention. In this, we are going to discuss four steps, or we can say four stages of intervention. Let us see one by one what are those four steps of intervention, and then we will discuss in detail. First one is your identify target skill via assessment. Okay, this is the first step where you need to think over when you prepare the intervention. Second one is your determine the factor and condition that are likely to facilitate learning. That also we are going to discuss. And third step is your plan. Third step is about plan instruction. And the fourth one is your fourth one is about your begin daily data managed instruction through three phases. So these four steps we need to understand when we prepare the intervention or educational intervention, particularly when you come to the fourth step, begin daily data manage instruction. That means a daily uh, tracking of the intervention via three phases. So what are these three phases? Your phase one is about the presentation procedure. Second one is your practice procedure, and third one is your generalization and independent learning procedure. So you're going to manage the data with the three phases. With the help of these three phases, this data manage instructions can be done with these three phases. We're going to discuss all these four steps and the phases one by one. Okay, now let us move to the first one and understand the procedure with some examples. What is that? So the first step is, as you know, identify the target skill via assessment. Now, target skill via assessment, what we are going to see in this, why it is important, what is the purpose behind this? Now, the purpose is to determine what to teach the student. That is, where you will be looking for that, whether you will be looking for. Okay, the first step in the procedure to prepare the intervention is your identify the target skill via assessment. That's very clear. To prepare the educational intervention, you need to prepare what to teach, what you're going to teach, what is the specific objective, what is the instructional objective which you're going to select against the child to develop or to develop the skills. See, successful instruction begin only with the selection of an appropriate learning task or objective. Okay, to identify this target skills, to identify these, the objective, the target means what you're going to teach. Okay, you need to do an assessment. The teacher need to conduct an assessment. The special educator need to do some sort of screening to understand where my child stand, to understand where my child's level is, what is my child's baseline, So that you need to identify. So the teacher must analyze the student, the test performance to discover which specific skills have been mastered or not, where my child stand. So it's not only the teacher, it's not only the subject teacher, it's also special educator, where they need to understand in collaboration with the subject what to teach to the student. That is very, very important. That is the first step where you identify the target of a specific subject. It might be English, mathematics, or EVS, or any other social skills. You need to identify the target which you need to teach. And the example, for example, um, subtract two-digit number from three-digit number. That might be a specific objective which you have selected in the mathematics to teach the child. Or it can be a relates a spoken sound to the written sound. If it is A, whether the child is relating the sound A. So this is what my target is. This is what my target is. It can be in any subject, not only in the mathematics. It can be in any subjects. Okay, so it's very, very simple. The steps are very simple. You can write in your exam without reading as well. You just need to remember the steps, the procedures. Okay, now let us move to the second step. Second step, as you know, determine the factor and condition that are likely to facilitate learning. Now, what is this? See, in first step, what we have seen, the purpose is to determine what to teach the student. Whereas here, how to teach the student. Okay, the purpose is to determine how to teach the student with learning disability or any other developmental disability. So the teacher must know how to teach the student so that it increase the efficiency of instruction. So if teacher know how to teach great, it can increase a greatly it can increase the efficiency, effectiveness of the teaching. Okay, so that's why we need to determine the factor, the conditions, the settings which can facilitate the learning. If you don't know how to teach, you have a student in your classroom and you are available in the classroom and you don't know where to start, how to use the environment, how to use you don't know how to arrange the classroom, you don't know how to do the classroom management, you don't have anything. So it's not going to facilitate, it is not going to you know increase the efficiency of your instructions. So that's why it's very, very important in these steps of instruction is you must know how to teach the student. For example, student is easily discouraged, especially when given a lot of works. Like student continuously wants to know how he is doing. So the teacher must understand the student has some difficulty with oral direction. Teacher must understand how to cater those needs, how to teach those students with those needs, which is very, very important. Okay, so that's why you understand the child's strength, you understand the child's weaknesses, you understand the child's need, and then you teach. That's how you accelerate your teaching and learning what to say methods. That's why it is very, very important. Now third one is about um, a plan instruction which we have discussed. Let us see first example and then we can move to the instructions. See, here you can see examples like provide oral directions slowly and have a student to repeat them. Keep in mind, give a practice seat work that features few items. Seat work means the child must sit at at one place at the chair, table, and work on the particular activity. Provide an immediate feedback verbally when teaching and through the self-correcting material. That means the self-feedback. That means the self-teaching. Okay, that is important. Now, with the help of this example. Now, what does these steps plays a major role? See, this step is, you know, guided by the tent of a database instructions. Okay, plan instruction means it should be based on the data. It must be based on the data instruction that the teaching procedure is produced appropriately towards a good objective, which is equal to good teaching. Okay, so that's why, if um, make sure that if you provide a practice to the child, it will give you some sort of a data. You must, like for example, good teaching is your good outcome. If you don't provide a particular opportunity, if you don't provide a particular feedback to the child, it's not going to be a better outcome. The child cannot elicit a good outcome, or the child cannot, uh, I mean to say, you cannot impart your good teaching. For good teaching, okay, for good teaching, uh, can who's that? Can you unmute? Sorry, can you mute? So, okay. So good teaching is a good outcome. Okay, that's why in the beginning we have shown you the examples. If you give a practice, if you give an opportunity, if you give an immediate feedback, if you provide an oral directional slowly, where a good outcome. So a good teaching is a good outcome. So plan the instruction appropriately so that you will have a better outcome. Because teacher use you know a basic fundamental. Teacher use a basic fundamental teaching principles that and monitor the student progress. So to monitor the student progress, you need to determine the instructional changes which is required in your planning, which is required in your instructional plan. So make sure that you give a lot of exposure to the children with learning disability. And the fourth step is about begin daily data manage instructions through three phases. We are going to discuss these three phases and we're going to understand. But before that, see, teacher of students with learning problem encounters the variable performance from many of their students. Okay, 100% as a teacher, you have seen a number of problem with the learning disability, with a learning problem or learning difficulty. Teacher must know how, if a student is making an adequate progress toward the specific instruction, whatever you have selected, and further you need to modify it. So to do or to modify all those things, you need to understand your child. You need to have a data. Without data, you cannot modify. Without, if I say, no, this guy or this boy is well enough learned the objective which I have selected, I cannot say like that because I don't have a data. I can say, okay, he has improved, but what is the evidence? I cannot, you know. So for that, we need to manage a data instruction. So how we can do this? We can do this with the phases, like the phase one. In phase one, um, phase one is about your presentation procedure. Now in presentation procedure, again, we have few, sub steps, that is use of advanced organizer. Now what is advanced organizer? See, use of advanced organizer, it connects the skills to prior learning or previous learning. Why? To identify the skills, to provide the practical things of the life, or introduce the new material. So the advanced organizer, if your presentation procedure is quite good, you can connect those skills to the a learning procedure, or it can be managed properly. Or this advanced organizer is nothing but to introduce the material at the beginning, okay, during the presentation stage. Next one is your describe the model. Now here, to describe the model, which is very very important, here what you can do is you need to, you have learned about the task analysis. So here, to describe the model, we need to break down the target skills into component parts and a model, or demonstrate the skills or sub skills to the students while carefully explaining each objective. You cannot say to the children, with learning disability, where he has limited cognition, he cannot understand your instructions, which has a complex words. So you need to break down those instructions into simpler way. Okay, for example, let us say if you're talking about, you know, um, about the water pollution. So water pollution has a major impact in the society, and in ruin the life of the human being in the community. They may not understand all those things until unless you show some models, until unless you show some pictures, until unless you show, this is how the water pollution look, until unless you, explain each steps carefully. So that's what, where you can manage your data, uh, in the phase wise. Okay, my child has learned this, my child knows this, so this is how you are going to present, this is your presentation procedure. Always, and remember, this is also help, these are all anticipatory sets. When you want to manage the classroom, when you go into the classroom and you ask the child, you start your class, you will be asking the anticipatory set, like showing the videos, asking the questions, so that you can link to the previous knowledge, so that you can connect the skills to what the child knows. So that is your presentation procedure and phase procedure, where you manage the data, where you begin, to manage the data. Yes, my child has this level. That second phase is your practice procedure. After presentation, practice procedure. In this, we have similar steps, like, conduct a guided practice. Now, what do you mean by conduct a guided practice? See, remember, for children with learning disability or intellectual disability or any other developmental disability, it requires, the guidance is required. So make sure that, if have a student practice selected task with a guidance from the teacher, particularly in this phase in practice procedure, or in a sub phase of practice procedure, that is your conduct guided practice, the student must practice the selected objective with guidance from teacher only. Okay, so that is very very important to understand. Okay guys, sorry, there was some disturbance here. Okay, so in the in phase 2 practice procedure, we have another similar steps which I told you, conduct guided practice. In this, the student must practice those particular objectives, the task, with the guidance from teacher, and the teacher must provide a corrective reinforcement and feedback. You have learned about the reinforcement, whereas teacher must, trigger the reinforcers as per the need of the child, okay, when they're learning the selected activity or task. Okay, and second one is your conduct controlled practice to mastery. Now, in first stage, you have seen conduct guided practice. That means the child requires a guidance, whereas here, the child must control the material which he has learned. So student practice selected activities or objective in controlled material to specified criterion. As I said you in the, in your educational intervention criteria, when you prepare your IP, you say, I want my child to develop 100%. So now here, the child must practice those particular objectives which you have selected in controlled material. Now, what is controlled material? Here, the controlled material is like you have given the time, you have given the limit, you have given the um, material, you have given the activity. Everything is there in room, environment, instructions, and you need to um, fix it up. Okay, I want you to develop till 100%. So this is how, where you're going to, where the child must um, you know work himself to the mastery level. And when the child does that, you need to give a positive reinforcement or positive corrective you know reinforcement to the children, so that they can move towards the what is a practice, practice to mastery level. Now, why I'm saying here positive corrective reinforcement, here the reinforcement is not only which we have learned, like social reinforcement or primary reinforcement. You also can give a lot of other reinforcement. It has a category, like giving a greeting card with a positive message, or calling the parents and talking about the strength of the child. That is also a reinforcement, giving a positive feedback where the child will listen, child will feel, oh, teacher has called my parent and saying a good thing. That increase the motivation. So that kind of reinforcement, going out of box and talking to the parents, not only saying, when we talk to the parent, they will give a lot of complaint. It's not like that. Give a positive call and see how you can work with those things. And the third one is about conduct. Third one is about conduct independent practice. Now you see here, in second step of phase 2, the child conduct a control practice. That means with minimal instruction, with minimal support. Whereas here, conduct independent practice. So what does it mean? Have the student practice a total task to a mastery criteria, whatever, that is 100%. That means independently, total activity. I want my child to develop 100% with independent, with complete set of objective. If it is like, you know, um, making a puzzle, so I want the child to develop the complete puzzle. I want my child to develop, learn the complete book of number. I want my child to learn the concept of addition completely, totally. So that is your independency. And in that also you need to provide a corrective reinforcement and feedback. Now you see, in phase 2 of um, step 4, you can see, you have a 3 sub steps where you need to give a positive reinforcements and feedback in all 3 stages. See, positive reinforcement has great impact. So don't forget that, because in instructional strategy, if there is no reinforcement, if there is no feedback, you cannot gather the data. You cannot, evaluate the stuffs which you have selected to the students. You cannot evaluate the objective which you have selected. Hope you have understood this. Now let us move to the, phase 3 of step 4, which is called generalization and independent learning procedure. It's quite simple. In your mind now, it might be stimulating. Oh, I have learned this generalization in stages of learning. I have learned this with some faculty, or you have listened this generalization. And this is the step. Yes, this is the step in the instructional strategies or instructional steps of instructional, which is very, very important to gather the data. So in this, again, we have a 2 sub steps, which is use of generalization training. Now, what is that? See here, to foster generalization, have a student practice a task presented in various material and setting to specified criterion. you have already learned in the step phase 2. But here, generalization means whatever the child has learned, whether he is applying in the different situation or not, with a different material or not, with 100% criterion or not, that you need to understand. That is a generalization. If you have thought about addition, make sure that the child is moving to the shopping mall and using those skills which you have taught. That is your different setting. Rather, you have taught in the classroom. So this is how you're going to generalize which you have given the training. So in that way, you need to, and once they have done correctly, you need to give a positive feedback. Oh, you have done a great job, boy. I'm looking again to do. So tomorrow we will go and you need to do again independently and do the transaction. So this is how you're going to motivate the child, get the feedback, give the feedback. No, in some point you have just missed this. So further you can improvise it. So in that way you can give uh, generalization training and you can provide a feedback. Okay, and the second step of phase 3 is your use independent learning training. This is the highest level, at the end level of your steps of instruction. And we are looking, you know the child must develop the skills independent, the child must move towards independent. Now, use of independent learning training is like for independent learning. Have the student practice the task specific learning strategy, which encourages the student to use a metacognitive strategies to self-regulating learning. Now, we are going to discuss about metacognitive strategies in the next sessions. But here, the metacognitive strategies is nothing but using self modalities, using self mind, using self, brain to generalize things and to understand, developing his own strategies. That is a metacognitive strategies. So that you need to understand. Okay, so this is the highest level of your instructions, where we are looking child to reach, where we are looking the child to you know climb the steps and achieve those cup, that achieve those success which you have you know fixed for the child. Okay, so that's it about the step of instructions. Hope you all guys have understood this.